I dated an Aquarius because tarot told me to go with the flow, and now I'm drowning in regret. Not metaphorically. Not poetically. Like literally lying on my bathroom floor at 2 a.m., crying into a moonstone crystal and whispering, "I release what no longer serves me," while his other girlfriend posted a couple selfie with him titled, "Love is not possession, it's permission." Yeah. Welcome to my spiritual breakdown. It started with a tarot spread. A very convincing one, too. I had just gotten out of a situationship with a guy who called himself emotionally fluent, but disappeared every time I cried. I was raw. I was ready. I wanted a sign. So I went to this new tarot reader, Nova. She had silver braids, rings on every finger, and a candle that smelled like jasmine and danger. She pulled 5 cards. The final one. The star. Air energy, Aquarius, clarity, divine timing. I gasped. Nova smiled. You're about to meet someone who will show you freedom. Don't resist it. Let go, flow. I left that reading high on potential and absolutely certain I was about to meet my soul expander. Spoiler, I did. And his name was River. Yes, River. I met him 3 days later at an open mic night. He was barefoot, reading poetry about decentralizing intimacy. I should have run. Instead, I leaned in. Because I was in my tarot era. And this man had air sign written all over him, figuratively and literally. He had an Aquarius tattoo behind his ear and a septum ring that screamed, "I don't believe in time, only vibes." He asked if I wanted to sit in his energy. I said yes. He offered me sage. I said yes again. He kissed me like he was apologizing for every man who ever ghosted me during Mercury retrograde. And I thought, this is it. This is the man the cards promised. River didn't ask me out. He said, let's coexist with intention. I swooned. Because clearly I was stupid. But also because I wanted to believe I was entering something higher. Something that transcended labels. Something the old me, the wounded me, just wasn't ready for yet. He never said I was his. He said, I honor your autonomy while inviting you into my orbit. And I thought that was love. Our relationship, I use that term loosely now, was a whirlwind of Tantra YouTube links, 5-hour voice notes, and late-night almond milk lattes where he called my emotional triggers capitalist conditioning. He never got mad. He got activated. He never lied. He withheld for sacred reasons. And I never called him out. Because I thought questioning him meant I was controlling. And River. He was free. And I wanted to be the kind of woman who could handle someone free. Until I found out his freedom included 2 other women. One named Luna. The other named Bliss. Of course. The worst part. He told me I wasn't being cheated on. I was being invited into expansion. And I almost believed him. Because when someone uses the language of healing to break your heart, it's hard to tell where the medicine ends and the manipulation begins. But trust me, I found out. And it nearly broke me. If River was a red flag, I was colorblind with crystals over my eyes. The first time we hung out, he brought his own mug to the coffee shop to minimize waste and read Rumi aloud in public. He complimented my solar plexus aura and told me he felt like we'd met in a past life, maybe a desert village or a Berlin squat in the 90s. And I giggled, not because it was funny, but because it felt fated. I mean, come on, Nova's tarot reading had literally told me, air, clarity, let go. This man's name was River, and he smelled like frankincense and confusing intimacy. We didn't date. River didn't date. We shared time. We exchanged flow. We undid the hierarchy of expectation. He told me that ownership is a trauma response, and instead of getting a text that said, "Are you free Friday?" I got, "Feeling pulled toward sunset energy and softness. Would love to intertwine if you're open." And I was open. Because who wants a boring man in khakis asking for dinner when you can have a barefoot moonboy who cries during Bon Iver songs? I didn't know it yet, but I was in what he called the soul mirror phase. This was when he made me feel like the most seen, sacred, untouchable being to ever walk the earth. He'd stare into my eyes for minutes at a time without speaking. Hold my hand mid-sentence just to say, "Wow, the way you breathe, it's holy." Call me his mirror of divine surrender. We spent hours lying on rugs, drinking mushroom tea, and talking about energetic resistance. He asked me if I believed in twin flames. I said, "I do now." He smiled, "Of course you do, you're my timeline fracture." I didn't know what that meant. I still don't. But I nodded like I did. And the sex? Oh God, it came with disclaimers. "This isn't physical." He whispered the first time. "This is alchemy." He didn't thrust, he channeled. He didn't moan, he hummed mantras into my collarbone. After, he'd hold me in complete silence for exactly 11 minutes because, numerologically, that's when energy resets. I didn't even like it most of the time. But I told myself it was advanced love. Because when you've been emotionally starved long enough, even spiritual jargon tastes like intimacy. He never called me his girlfriend. Instead, he said I was a sovereign collaborator in his present chapter. I would sit on his bed, watch him journal with calligraphy pens, and wait for crumbs of conventional affection. Instead, I got breathwork assignments. I started losing myself slowly. He didn't like labels, so I stopped asking what we were. He didn't believe in conflict, so I swallowed every discomfort. He didn't subscribe to monogamous constructs, so I told myself I didn't either. I wanted to be the woman who could love him freely. Who could rise above jealousy like it was a lower chakra issue. He told me jealousy was ego attachment. I told myself I was just integrating a shadow. Spoiler, I was being gaslit, not spiritually initiated. The first real rupture came when I asked, casually, who the woman in his Instagram story was. He blinked, as if I'd just asked why trees exist. "That's Luna," he said. "She's part of my constellation." I laughed, then stopped. He wasn't joking. "Constellation?" I asked. "I'm non-monogamous," he said gently, but in a way that centers reverence, not chaos. He smiled like that made it better. And I nodded like I understood. Because I wanted to be worthy of that kind of love. He told me he had multiple heart threads. That monogamy was colonial programming. That love is expansive, not possessive. I told him I need time to process. He kissed my forehead and said, "Take all the time you need, just don't let fear shrink your truth." And just like that, my truth got smaller every day. And his love just kept expanding. Her name was Luna. Of course it was. She wore loose linen dresses, had a crescent moon tattoo on her ankle, and posted Instagram captions like, "He sees my shadows and kisses them anyway." I found her accidentally, on his phone, while changing the playlist during a healing touch session. Yes, that's what River called cuddling. Because normal language was apparently too three-dimensional for him. I didn't even snoop. I just tapped the wrong app. And there she was. Dozens of open heart emojis. Photos of River with his forehead pressed to hers. Captions like, "I am not his, but I am with him, and that's more sacred." And instead of losing my mind, I did what I thought a spiritually enlightened woman was supposed to do. I breathed. And then I asked him gently, "Is there something between you and Luna?" He didn't flinch. "Luna is part of my soul ecology." That was his actual answer. Not yes. Not I'm sorry. Just another poetic dodge that made me feel stupid for wanting something as basic as the truth. I said, I wish you told me. He said, I didn't want to limit your experience with expectation. I said, so you're in love with her. He smiled softly. Love isn't a finite resource, Maren. She holds a different frequency than you, but you both resonate. I was done resonating, but I wasn't brave enough to say it out loud. 2 weeks later, Bliss arrived. Yes, Bliss. I met her in real life. At a cacao ceremony River invited me to, hosted in a geodesic dome, obviously. She hugged me like we were long-lost soul sisters. Told me my heart field felt anxious but sparkly. Then kissed River on the mouth like I wasn't even there. I blinked. River just smiled and said, It's beautiful, right? How all our energies can hold space together. I wanted to scream. To rage. To snap out of the psychobabble haze and just be a normal, angry woman. But instead I sat on a woven floor pillow, sipped my sacred cacao, and tried not to cry during the joint release ritual. That night, I told him I was struggling. He stroked my hair and said, That's because your ego still believes in scarcity. I whispered, It's not ego, it's heartbreak. He said, Then that's where your work is. And that's when I realized. He wasn't confused. He was in control. Not through cruelty. Through language. He built a vocabulary where pain was resistance. Jealousy was colonial. And boundaries were fear-based. I wasn't being loved. I was being spiritually manipulated. And the more I tried to ascend, the more I shrank. I stopped talking to my friends. They did get it. They'd say things like, So, he's just dating other people and making you feel bad for being upset. And I'd say, It's not like that, he's evolved, we're transcending binaries. They'd stare at me like I'd joined a cult. Maybe I had. Eventually, even my tarot cards started to warn me. I pulled the Three of Swords twice in 1 week. Nova texted me after a session and said, I'm worried you're confusing expansion with self-erasure. But I ignored her. Because I wasn't ready to admit that I had been lied to. By a man. By myself. By a deck of cards. The final straw. A flyer on River's fridge. Hand-drawn watercolor. Titled The Sacred Union, a commitment ceremony. It was for him and Luna. Date, time, location. At the bottom, witnesses welcome, community blessings encouraged. I blinked. Reread it. Then whispered, You're having a wedding. He grinned. It's not a wedding, it's a vibrational alignment ritual. You should come, you're part of the journey. He meant it. Genuinely. And that broke me more than anything else. Because when a man thinks inviting you to bless his love with someone else is kindness, you realize there's no card in the deck that explains this kind of cruelty. The day of the vibrational alignment ceremony, I stood in front of my mirror holding 2 dresses. A linen wrap dress he once said made me look like moonlight. And a black slip dress I hadn't worn since I still believed in monogamy. I didn't know why I was still going. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted to prove I was evolved enough to witness his union without falling apart. Or maybe I just didn't want to be the girl who ran from discomfort. I chose the black. Let them feel the funeral energy I was bringing to their forest wedding. The ceremony was in a clearing outside Joshua Tree. Of course it was. You had to walk barefoot through sage smoke to enter the sacred circle. There were hand drums. People handing out rose water. Someone whispered, We're about to witness their soul convergence. And me. I stood in the back, stone still, watching the man who once told me I was his divine anchor, now wrap hemp string around another woman's hand and say, You are my home, my chaos, and my calm. Luna smiled like the earth had just blessed her womb. River kissed her forehead. The crowd cheered. Someone rang a singing bowl. And I didn't cry. I laughed. Quiet, breathless, almost cruel. Because there was something so darkly hilarious about being asked to bless the union of the man who'd rewritten cheating into cosmic fluidity. After the ceremony, River found me. He looked radiant. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. "It means everything that you're still part of this constellation." "I'm not," I replied. His smile didn't falter. "You always will be. Energy doesn't disappear. It just shifts." I looked him dead in the eyes. "Mine's shifting out of your orbit." And with that, I turned and walked away. Barefoot. Through cactus and thorns. Holding my shoes in one hand and what remained of my dignity in the other. I didn't answer his texts after that. Not the one that said, "Sending you light." Not the one that said, "I honor your process." And definitely not the one that said, "Our love was never meant to be contained." Because the truth is, I didn't need River's light. I needed my own anger. The kind that burns sage smoke delusion to the ground. The kind that makes you delete every shared Google Calendar event with a man who called emotional neglect energetic autonomy. I cut off Bliss too. She DM'd me after the ceremony with, "You radiated acceptance, so beautiful." I didn't reply. Because I wasn't radiating. I was disassociating. The next day, I went to Nova. I laid the star card on her table. "This is where it started," I said. She studied it, then looked at me. "You misunderstood the message." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She pointed at the figure on the card. "She's pouring both cups out, one onto the earth, one into the water. There's no holding on." I stared at the image like I was seeing it for the first time. "She lets it all go," Nova said, "because healing is about release, not romance." I cried. Not cute, aesthetic tears. Full, furious sobs that sounded more animal than woman. Nova didn't interrupt. She just lit another candle and said, "You were never meant to flow with him. You were meant to remember you can swim." And that's when I knew. River wasn't the lesson. I was. You know what they don't tell you about dating a spiritually evolved man? The healing you'll have to do after. The kind that doesn't come from crystals, or cacao, or full moon sound baths. But from staring at your phone at 2:14 a.m., rereading the phrase, "I honor your process," and realizing you were never loved, you were managed. The days after the ceremony felt like grief on mushrooms. Nothing made sense. Time felt fake. My chest felt like it was hosting a permanent breath-holding contest. I deleted Instagram. Stopped journaling. Even threw away my tarot cards. Yes, the whole deck. All 78 cards. Tossed them in the trash like they were co-conspirators. Because I couldn't stop asking myself, did I manifest this? Did I pull this pain into my life by choosing to believe a card over my gut? I stopped going to breathwork classes. I avoided my yoga studio. I told Nova I needed a break from spiritual language. And she said, "Good, that means it's finally real." At first, I didn't know what she meant. But then I did. Because all the mantras, all the blessings, all the goddamn full moon journal prompts, they weren't healing me. They were keeping me distracted. Distracted from the truth that I had been played. Not by a narcissist. Not even by River. By an entire performance of conscious masculinity that was just another costume for control. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. Like how River always seemed emotionally available until I asked for something he didn't already want to give. How he talked about love more than he showed it. How he spiritualized every boundary I tried to set. Attachment is illusion. Pain is your path to truth. Don't confuse containment with care. At one point I'd thought, Wow, he's so emotionally intelligent. Now I realized. He just weaponized introspection. I started reading articles about cult dynamics. Yes, cults. Not because River led one, but because the pattern was the same. A charismatic figure who speaks in riddles. A promise of higher truth. A subtle erasure of your own voice, replaced with wisdom that sounds spiritual but feels like gaslighting. And worst of all, you do it to yourself. You translate the manipulation into meaning. Because the language is so beautiful. But beneath the beauty, it's all just silence. I remember one night, curled up on the floor in a hoodie that still smelled like his cologne and patchouli, thinking, how did I go from wanting love to accepting a man who thinks asking for exclusivity is a scarcity mindset? And the answer, because I was tired. Tired of feeling too much. Tired of asking for more. Tired of being told I had to heal myself before someone could love me. So when River came along and said, "You are already whole," I clung to him like he was oxygen. But here's the twist. He didn't love my wholeness. He loved how well I pretended I didn't need anything. It took weeks to detox. Yes, detox. Because spiritual gaslighting leaves residue. Like flinching when someone says, flow. Or gagging when you hear the word, alignment. I couldn't even listen to lo-fi meditation playlists without feeling rage. I was allergic to inner peace. But one day, I walked into a bookstore. No reason. Just trying to kill time. I wandered into the astrology section, out of habit, and picked up a book called The Myth of the Evolved Man. Page 1 said, "The man who says, you are your own home, is usually just trying to avoid building anything with you." I sat down on the floor and cried. Not heartbreak tears. Breakthrough tears. Because finally, someone said it plain. River didn't ruin me. He revealed me. He showed me the parts of me that were still starving for attention, but dressing it up as enlightenment. He exposed the version of me that was willing to perform worthiness just to stay in someone's orbit. But most of all, he reminded me that freedom isn't loving someone who loves everyone. It's loving someone who chooses you. Even when it's not trendy. Even when it's not polycurious. Even when there's no sage burning. Just presence. Just care. Just truth. It had been 2 months since the alignment ceremony. 2 months of quiet. 2 months of no River, no Luna, no bliss, no emotional TED Talks disguised as texts. I'd started to feel human again. I laughed without questioning the vibration of my throat chakra. I watched trashy TV without checking if it was energy expanding. I wore jeans, not flowy pants. I lit candles because they smelled nice, not because Mercury was square Venus. Then it happened. He messaged me. Of course he did. It came at 1:11 a.m. Classic. The preview said, "Just wanted to share something I wrote after sitting in your energy again." My stomach dropped. I opened it. It was a screenshot of a Notes app poem. Untitled. Your silence echoes like truth. In the places we once resonated. You were never mine. But I was always yours in permission. What the hell? And then, I still hold you in gratitude. May your path bloom. No punctuation. No apology. Just more soft-worded smoke bombs. And below that, a photo of him and Bliss, holding hands, in front of the Joshua Tree sign. Caption, "We don't believe in time, just moments." I stared at the message. And for the first time ever, I didn't overthink. I didn't try to decode it. Didn't wonder if it was a cry for help or a spiritual breadcrumb back to his orbit. I saw it for what it was. A final test. To see if I'd step back into his story. I didn't. I replied with one sentence. May your path include a therapist. And then I blocked him. Everywhere. That felt better than any breathwork. Better than tarot. Better than his dumb almond milk moon smoothies. Better than the time he called me his chaos and calm in the same inhale. Because finally, I wasn't trying to be evolved. I was just trying to be done. I went outside. No crystals, no ceremony, just me. The stars were out. The air was cold. I whispered, I'm not a frequency, I'm a person. And it felt like the first real thing I'd said in a long time. The next morning, I pulled a card for myself. Yes, one last time. It was the Tower. Destruction, collapse, ego death. And rebirth. I smiled. For once, the card didn't scare me. Because I had collapsed. I had burned it all down. And now I could rebuild. Not from illusion, but from clarity. Not because a man told me I was whole, but because I finally believed it on my own. I used to think freedom meant detachment. No labels. No expectations. No accountability. I thought being evolved meant letting people come and go as they pleased, while I smiled through the ache and called it non-attachment. But now I know better. Freedom isn't floating, it's choosing. And I choose me. Looking back, River wasn't a villain. He was a mirror. A beautifully packaged, incense-scented, chakra-colored reflection of every part of me that confused chaos for chemistry. He gave me poetry instead of partnership, philosophy instead of presence. And worst of all, he convinced me that wanting more meant I was spiritually ready. But the truth, I was never too much, he was just never enough. Now, I don't wait for signs from the universe. I don't consult my deck to know how I feel. I trust myself. My gut. My no. I still light candles because I like the smell. I still pull cards when I want guidance, not validation. I still believe in energy, just not from men who hide behind it. And if I ever meet another Aquarius twin flame who's rewriting the masculine template, I'll smile, wish him peace, and run. I'm not jaded. I still believe in soulmates, but not the kind that make you sacrifice your sanity to feel expanded. I believe in love that's solid, grounded, present, simple in the best way. Love that texts back, that keeps promises, that doesn't need a TED Talk or a moon phase to explain why he vanished for 3 days. Love that doesn't call basic kindness advanced consciousness. To the women still in the middle of it, still meditating their pain away, still rewriting their boundaries in the name of being open. Please hear me. Wanting clarity isn't a trauma wound. It's a standard. Wanting consistency isn't control. It's respect. And if someone makes you feel like needing love makes you unevolved, they are not enlightened, they're just unavailable. One day, someone will love me without needing a ceremony to prove they're free. And I won't need to shrink to fit that love, or glow to keep it, or float to deserve it. I'll stand on solid ground, in my truth, in my body, in my no. And that's the kind of alignment no man has ever taught me. Because I didn't ascend, I remembered who I was. And this time, I pulled my own card. And it was me. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.